Hi, Vigilantes. This is Clara and Julia with the Vigilante podcast.
Yes, our theme is Brews with a View. Every time we start our podcast, we're going to be talking about our favorite shows while enjoying a nice cold brew. In Clara's case, it's a warm brew. What are you drinking, Clara?
I have a mint tea today. I've been sick the last couple of weeks, and so alcohol is a no-go for me.
And I'm having a nice cold tecate. So our theme today is we're going to be talking about Paleyfest. Paleyfest is an event that's put together by the Paley Center for Media every year to showcase some fall shows from the broadcast networks. So the first one we're going to be talking about is pilots from NBC. We saw 3. They are Truth Be Told, Blind Spot, and The Player. Let's start with Truth Be Told.
Okay, so Truth Be Told was a half-hour comedy starring Mark Gosselaar and Vanessa Lachey about this family and their friends who live next door, and it was all about their lives and their wacky, experiences together. The pilot had, what I liked about the pilot was Mark Gosselaar. I think this is a great place for him.
He has really good comedic timing.
Yeah, for him to return to television. I know, he had a successful one with Franklin Bash, but this is a good return to comedy for him. So I liked him in the pilot.
I found a lot of the characters funny. I think, especially the child. I love it when they have really strong comedy coming from child actors. I did feel a little bit like they were trying to be too funny, but it's Mark Gosselaar. He's hilarious. So I will probably give it a try.
I understand your point of them trying too hard. I felt like they were trying to push the envelope with racial jokes and
yes.
with these ethical questions and these dilemmas. But it's hard to really, my opinion is, it's hard to get a really fleshed out story in a half-hour sitcom.
Yeah.
And so everything is very surface, but when you're trying to get to these deeper conversations and bring out this deeper stuff, it is kind of hard. But then again, it's only the pilot. It's not like we have multiple episodes to judge this by.
Exactly. So I'd be interested to see how it progresses over the next couple of episodes, to see how they kind of incorporate, what you just said of those ethical questions and racial tensions, and trying that every episode and seeing how that portrays.
Especially since we didn't mention Mark Gosselaar's character is an ethics professor at a college. So that's why they're trying to bring in that element too.
Yes. So the next pilot we're going to be talking about, which is beginning a lot of coverage and marketing, is called Blind Spot. It stars Jamie Alexander as the female lead, and I can never remember his name. I know the character's name, Kurt Weller, and it has quite a nice cast. And I was really, really surprised at how much I loved this pilot. I really thought it was just going to be some new show to bring in, people, but I really liked the premise of it.
I agree. I think Blind Spot was really good, and you say you forget his name, but the only name I remember for him is Scott from Strike Back for the character of Kurt Weller. Mm-hmm. I did enjoy the premise. I kind of felt that I knew what was going to happen because maybe the marketing has been so saturated that yes. I felt like I knew the story already. I knew where it was going. But that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I think the pilot's supposed to introduce you to this larger story. It's like I had a little teaser already. I knew what the larger story was going to be, but I'm still interested in finding out what's going to happen next.
What really, really sold it for me was Jamie Alexander's character. I thought it was going to be someone who was going to be shy, timid, and very new to the world. And from the moment we saw her on screen, I found her to be really strong, really sure about herself, even though she has this predicament, and I really liked her strength in that role, and that for me that sold it.
The next pilot we saw was The Player, which is I would say I don't want to call it drama, but it was kind of dramatic, but also kind of a comedy. I thought they had really good comedic elements, but it's about this guy who's a cop, former war vet. I guess he had been...
I'm assuming because it made it seem like...
Maybe in covert operations or something. And he gets kind of involved in this kind of gambling game, this gambling scheme. I think that sometimes some people's reactions, from what I heard, they were really confused as the premise in terms of how... Let's go back. The premise of the show is that there's a group of wealthy individuals who have figured out a way to predict crime and then place bets on the outcome of these situations. And so there was a sense of confusion as to how they were able to predict crime, how accurate the system was, who these people were.
And then the main character is the player in this, where people are placing the bet against him or
for him. Yeah.
For him or against him.
Yeah, so it models after, I guess, a Vegas game. So you have the dealer, the house, the pit boss, and the player. And so the players are our characters. It takes place in Vegas. Going into it, having watched already 4 or 5 seasons, I guess, of Person of Interest, and understanding how Northern Lights works. Like, if you watch Person of Interest, how Northern Lights collects metadata and comes out with possible crime or possible victims or perpetrators, it was easier for me to grasp this concept of these rich individuals taking, how they could take CCTV footage and phone calls and emails and come out with probability. For somebody who is not a fan of Person of Interest, there's going to need to be a greater explanation. But I think they're going for the Person of Interest fans who will know the concept.
I don't know the schedule off the top of my head, but I would not be surprised if the player was up against Person of Interest.
Yeah, they are on competing networks. So Person of Interest is on CBS, and then the players on NBC. So that could be possible, that they're trying to compete for those viewers.
So the next screenings we saw were from ABC. We saw Dr. Ken, Blood and Oil, and Quantico.
All right, so starting with Dr. Ken. Unfortunately, I took a break during this. I'm not one, as I said before, for half-hour sitcoms, so I sat this one out, and I did not see this pilot.
Unfortunately, I sat through Dr. Ken. I did not like it. I forget the gentleman's name, the star, but he, I believe, was in the Hangover, part 1, 2, and 3. I'm not a fan of him. I don't like his comedy, so I really found this sitcom hard to get through. I felt like it was trying to be Modern Family, but trying to be The Big Bang Theory.
Maybe fresh off the boat, too.
And then fresh off the boat, even though they're on the same network. So I don't know why they're trying to recreate that. So I did not like it at all.
Okay. The next one was an hour drama called Blood and Oil with
Chase Crawford
from Gossip Girl. And
couple of new faces.
A couple of new people. And the premise of the show was this young couple, they moved to this town that's a booming oil town. And they are looking to kind of make their break.
American Dream.
Town. Yeah. I was kind of hoping, as I watched it, I guess maybe I had an expectation as soon as I got into it, that this was going to be a modern retelling of the California Gold Rush. How you had people who had no money, had no quote-unquote class, had no formal upbringing, and then all of a sudden were introduced to a lot of new money, and that there was going to be a lot of conflicts among people in the town over that. Like the old money versus the new money, and then also the native population that's there, the American Indians that are there, and how that was going to play out. That ended up not being what the show
very different
was about. It actually is more of family conflict, kind of a la Dallas or Dynasty.
Yes. I did find that, I've never seen Dallas, but I know the premise of it. But basically, a rich, wealthy family tries to monopolize on a new information. Someone overhears it. The two characters overhear it and try to monopolize on this so they can kind of get their own foot in. And instead of like being enemies, they ended up being somewhat friends. But
there was a certain respect amongst them about, like, we both try to get over on each other. You came out on top, so at the end of the day, I can't fault you for that because I was on the same thing. So there was kind of that begrudging respect between the two. I too never watched Dallas, though somebody made the comment that they felt that this was like a prequel to Dallas, like as if Chase Crawford's character is like JR as a young guy.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is. I never saw Dallas, but that's kind of the impression that I got from people too that watched the pilot.
I thought it was a good pilot. I don't think it's a show I'll definitely watch, but I don't think it's a show that I'm going to be dying to watch every single day or every week. The next pilot we saw, which is hotly anticipated, is Quantico. Basically takes place in the FBI training camp in Quantico, Virginia, where a group of cadets or trainees are in
the academy. It's like FBI academy, so they're training to become FBI agents.
Yes, but there's a twist. One of them is going to commit a terrorist attack in the future, approximately 9 months from when they're in the training camp, but we don't know who it is.
And we kind of get this split story of, the narrative moves forward while they're at Quantico and attending classes. And then we have a narrative that's moving forward at the same time of the events that happened in 9 months. I called it I Know What You Did Last Summer, FBI Edition.
Yes.
that was my new title for Quantico. But it was that. I liked the show a lot, and I really liked the lead. I thought she was amazing. What I didn't like was the switch back and forth between the time periods. Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Arrow, how Arrow does that. And it's the thing I don't like about Arrow.
A lot of people complain that in Arrow, the time, it takes up too much time of the current episode. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that they don't do that with Quantico.
I mean, some suggestions might be to split time like episode by episode, but then that loses people. So you have to remember what happened 2 episodes ago into the current narrative. So there's always that drawback when you do a show that's having 2 continuities happening at the same time, is not losing people in the narrative and not losing people back and forth. So the entire time that the 9-month flash forward is going on, you're getting clues from the 9 months ago at the academy.
Yes.
So we'll see how that pans out. Or unless they just did it in the beginning and the end of the season and left the entire chunk of the middle at Quantico. I don't know.
Bottom line, I thought it was an amazing pilot. I was looking forward to it because I love police procedurals. And this really was an excellent pilot. The cast is amazing. Like Clara said, the lead, I love her. I've never seen her before. I know she's popular in Bollywood films, but she...
Miss World?
Yes, Miss Universe. But she has such gravitas in that the 45 minutes alone that I think she's going to kill this role.
Yeah.
And then the last screenings we saw for Saturday were from the CW network. The first one is Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
So Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is about...
I'm giggling a little bit because it was a very interesting pilot.
So Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is about our main character, and I mean, this kind of tells you, I can't even remember her name right now.
See if they look alike.
She is kind of lost in her life, doesn't know what to do next. She's 26 years old, has a great career, and is living in New York, living what she thought was her dream. She realizes she's very unhappy, and realizes the last time she was truly happy was when she was with this young man, Josh, who she dated for 2 months when she was 16 years old.
At a summer camp. So he breaks up with her because she's got a little too attached. And then, flash forward 10 years, she is trying to figure out, she sees Josh walking down the street, and she reconnects with him, and there's some of these unresolved feelings. And then, I don't want to give too much away, but she ends up making a life decision based on Josh, but not really on Josh, but yes on Josh. I thought this was a really confusing pilot. I found it like trying a little bit too hard to be campy and hipster-y, but it was a little bit confusing.
I also felt like it was trying too hard. Like, it was trying to be funny. I think that there were moments where I did laugh, but I don't think I was laughing in the intention that the producers of the show intended me to laugh.
Agreed.
It was like embarrassing at times. Like, I felt embarrassed for her, and that was not a comfortable feeling for me, and so I'm not likely to watch the show because of that. I didn't feel comfortable watching it. Mm-hmm. I think a couple of things should have been changed. One of the things I really would have done was age up the character. I think it's very weird that a 26-year-old is so desperate about love that they would make such a rash decision. Yes, I know there are people like this, but I think it would be more approachable if it was if she was even 36
or maybe 32 even.
I don't know. But the 26-year-old, it's like, oh, my love life has been crap. You're 26 years old. So it was hard for me to buy into that.
Yeah. I don't think it's a pilot I'm going to be watching, unfortunately.
Agreed.
The next one we saw was Containment, which, full disclosure, I do not watch any zombie shows because they terrify me, and this is no exception.
It's not a zombie show.
Not a zombie show, but it's
a medical drama.
It is not a medical drama. It is not a medical drama.
They were sick people. They were doctors.
Some rare form of the flu gets brought into Atlanta, and they have to quarantine the population. And then part of the symptoms is that the late stages, they get kind of uncontrollable, and they get a little bit rabid, I think was the word.
It's also a bit like there was a lot of gore to it. It's a hemorrhagic. The disease is hemorrhagic, so they bleed profusely. So there is an element of gore to it. I would probably describe it as Contagion meets 28 Days Later.
Okay.
So like you remember the movie Contagion with Matt Damon, and how it kind of showed when you have a massive population how they really react to an outbreak like this, and how people became very closed in and very insular and suspicious of each other and paranoid. So there was that part of it, and then also, like, of course, the goriness of it too, which reminded me of 28 Days Later.
I will say, for me not watching these shows, I thought it was an actually really good pilot. I really liked the characters. The two leads did have a lot of nice chemistry. Again, it being a borderline medical horror zombie-esque kind of show, I don't know if I'll watch it, but maybe I'll watch the second episode with my one eye closed and one open.
And so the last thing we saw on Saturday was DC's Legends of Tomorrow. They gave us a little special teaser. I was hoping for it to be something more, but unfortunately it's what we've seen already. It was what was aired at San Diego Comic-Con and is available online at any time. You can go and watch it. So there's nothing really new about the teaser itself.
We're all still very excited to see DC's Legends of Tomorrow. I'm a big fan of The Flash and Arrow, and I really did like seeing some familiar faces. I particularly like the original Black Canary, a.k.a. the new White Canary, Sarah Lance.
Katie Lotz.
No.
Katie Lotz, that's her name.
Yes, Katie Lotz. I love her. Some people complain that she has a pouty mouth, but I really, really, really like her. So I'm really looking forward to it. I like the idea of time travel. It's always something that's partial to my heart when it comes to sci-fi or genre shows. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they incorporate that into the Arrow Flash DC verse.
Yeah, I'm also very excited to see Legends tomorrow. I think that, Berlanti Productions has done a really good job of, with these superhero
Vigilante
shows.
is amazing.
So I'm excited to see what comes next and how this is going to fit into the continuity, the established continuity of Arrow and the Flash. So I'm
and
definitely
potentially maybe Supergirl.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
I know. Speaking of Supergirl, on Sunday we saw CBS screenings. The first one we saw was Code Black, which is a medical drama, actually based on a documentary, I believe, from a year or 2 years ago, either on CBS or somewhere else, but basically on a specific hospital in Los Angeles that the night shift, and it revolves around the character played by Marcia Gay Harden, who I adore. And she is the chief resident in charge of residents who are fresh out of medical school, want to get their hands dirty, want to be heroes, and then get hit with reality. One thing I really, really liked about this pilot is that the medical aspect of it is real. They were giving real CPR, not this 1, 2, 3, 4. It was intense, real CPR. And I love seeing that, especially medical dramas, because it's so important. You don't want to downplay or dumb things down for an audience. I think this was a real medical drama, and I'm going to give it a second viewing.
I'm not one for medical dramas at all, but I did enjoy the pilot. It's not like I don't watch a medical drama if it's on, but they're not shows that I typically follow. And the reason is because sometimes I care more about the medical side than I do about what's going on in the lives of the doctors. And because, especially in this case, it's an emergency room, we don't get in-depth issues with the patients. We mostly get this soap opera-esque, behind-the-scenes, love life, who's talking to who, drama amongst the doctors that I personally just don't enjoy. So I typically don't watch medical dramas.
One thing I will say, I also found it very different from current medical dramas like Grey's Anatomy or ER, for example. I found it a less soapy, but more about the practice of medicine and the hands-on, fast action kind of thing.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
The next one was Life in Pieces, which is a half-hour sitcom. And it involved kind of vignettes, like an anthology-style storytelling, where we were given very small, maybe 7-minute short bursts of people that we didn't know who they were. It was just we were learning about them as we went. And then the fourth vignette kind of introduced the fact that this was one large family.
They're siblings. So
I guess this idea of life in pieces makes sense. It's you have these separate individuals who each have their own lives, but everything that happens among them interacts with each other and affects each other. And I assume from the pilot that this is the style that they're going to use. So it'll be 4 pieces, one for each of the 3 family units, and then one at the end to kind of tie them all together.
I was literally crying because I was laughing so hard from this pilot. I had no idea Diane West. I mean, I knew Diane West. She was in The Birdcage, and it's like one of my favorite movies ever. But this was a hilarious, hilarious pilot. It was so well done. The comedy was on point. It wasn't trying too hard. I really think this is going to be a successful show. Like, almost Big Bang Theory successful, I dare say.
Doubtful. Yeah, that's one of the only sitcoms I watch is Big Bang Theory. So it has a special place in my heart.
The third one we saw from CBS was Angel from Hell. It stars, oh my gosh, what is her name from Glee?
Jane Lynch.
Jane Lynch. Why did I forget her name? Stars Jane Lynch as an angel who appears herself to her person she's guardianing. And
it was a weird show. Like, I think that I would say I was wanting the mystery to be longer. Is this a crazy woman or is she an angel? Like, in this,
or is she both? Because she's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but I think what would have made the show much more interesting is if we didn't know if she was crazy or an angel.
Yeah.
So because that mystery of it, but then they kind of resolved that at the end of the episode. I won't say how is she crazy, is she an angel, but they kind of resolve it at the end of the episode, and you're just like,
that was quick.
Yeah. Like, that was unsatisfying. I think they should have extended it longer. I did like their interactions. I think that the two of them had really good chemistry. And have, that kind of sisterly, I don't know, what's the female version of a bromance?
Sistermans?
No, I don't like it.
Sister wives?
No, definitely not. But yeah, so their chemistry was really good. I think the two of them were really good together. I just felt that they should have extended that mystery a bit longer.
I'm not going to watch it, unfortunately.
Yeah, no.
The next pilot we saw was Limitless, which I know Clara was excited to see. I was so about it, and I actually really, really liked it.
If you're a fan of the movie, you guys remember the movie with Bradley Cooper, where he is introduced to this drug, NZT, a drug that allows for greater access to brain power, heightened memory, intelligence,
sensory
perception, and things like that. And it kind of follows him through his journey, Bradley Cooper. This is a sequel to that story where we see maybe Bradley Cooper 5 years post the end of the movie, it seemed.
5-ish.
Yeah, I would say 5 years after the end. And he's kind of similar to Bradley Cooper's character. A guy with no direction, no purpose.
Confused.
Confused about what he wants to do. And then kind of gets introduced to this drug and its effects.
I really liked the female lead. I'm forgetting her name.
Jennifer
Carpenter.
Love her.
Yeah, she was very popular on Dexter, which Clara was obsessed with.
Yes.
And I was pretty unfamiliar with her, but I really, really liked the character. I really liked the interaction with her and the male lead. Like I said, I love police procedurals, and I got the sense that he's going to be using his newfound power-ish to help the FBI solve crimes.
Yeah, so that's one deviation from the movie. he kind of teams up with law enforcement to work with them. And I guess that was a way to extend what would be a movie concept into a serialized, week-by-week episodic format.
Yeah.
So that he's working with the FBI and working on cases every week with them, using the NZT as a tool, but also allowing the FBI to study the effects of NZT on people. So there's that, duality, that they're both getting something out of it. And again, I love Jennifer Carpenter. I was a fan of Dexter for years. And so I'm happy to see her back on TV and happy to, have her back in my living room.
I like that. I'm going to be watching the show. Yeah. And FYI, I have not seen the movie Limitless.
You need to watch this movie.
I will, because this was an excellent pilot. And the last pilot we saw for CBS was
Supergirl, which is another Vigilante production.
And Vigilante is killing it, by the way.
With the superhero genre.
He's doing a phenomenal job.
So it follows, if you're a fan of superheroes and fan of comic books, you know Supergirl's story. She is Kal-El's older cousin who was sent to Earth to protect him. But unfortunately, her pod was waylaid and she arrives after him, so that in fact, she, when she's on Earth, is younger than Superman. Mm-hmm. And she kind of metaphorically lives in Superman's shadow, feeling like she has the same abilities as him and yet is not able to use her abilities the way that he does. And I don't want to say unable, but she doesn't have the confidence to be effective as he does. So she doubts her ability.
She's
not
very
that she
unsure.
Can't do it, is that she doesn't think she can do it.
Mm-hmm. And also, her sister plays an important role in that. I don't want to give too much away, but her sister is very important to her and their relationship. I hope we get to see her parents more, but her relationship with her sister, I think, is going to be a very strong one in this series. And I think her sister influences a lot of her decision making. Agreed.
I really like Melissa Benoist as Kara. She was kind of ditzy, really optimistic and smiley and upbeat, and it reminds me a lot of what I really loved about Barry Allen in The Flash. This kind of good old boy next door, girl next door
wants to do good but doesn't know how.
And that was the impression I had of her portrayal as Kara. I know that people compare her. Obviously, they're gonna compare her to Laura Vandervoot from Smallville, but that's not... I never watched that show and I never saw that incarnation of Supergirl. I really like this one. I feel like a lot of times our superhero genres are going very dark, and I see we're getting a swing back to a much lighter superhero, more classic, Silver Age feel.
Yes. I really like the pilot. I'm definitely going to be catching the series. I'm really scared for it because it is on CBS, and CBS typically hasn't been nice to younger skewed audiences. So I'm really nervous. I really hope it does well because it was a great pilot, and I think it's going to be a great series.
I think CBS has high expectations when it comes to its shows and what it wants its ratings to be, but sometimes that's just not the reality of genre television. Mm-hmm. People who watch genre television use alternate media to watch. And while, yes, sometimes, DVR numbers are kept in, but they also watch streaming, they watch from each other, they're talking about it a lot online. And more of that info needs to be pulled in when determining the popularity and longevity of a show. Because it's true. The people who would watch Supergirl are very rare to watch it live when it airs.
Exactly. So I feel like that might hinder it a little bit. Like I said, I'm really going to push hard for it, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that CBS is going to do it good, or do it justice.
We'll see.
So the next screenings we saw were from Fox, the Fox pilots. The first one we saw was Grandfathered. Unfortunately, this is the time when I chose to take a break. I came in about the last 20 minutes of it. I like John Stamos. He's a funny guy. I don't think this was a good look for him. Him being a grandfather and juggling. I get the irony of him juggling a life and being a grandfather, but him still wanting to be, young and hip and all that. I wasn't feeling it with this pilot.
I also took a break and I saw maybe the last half of the pilot. I like the concept. I think that it's funny because it's reality. You have guys who are 50 years old who, go out to clubs and, are still not settled down, running around. That's reality. You just never know what's in your past. And so the premise of the show is that he had a son that he never knew about when he was 25 years old. And now his son is 25 years old, married with a kid. And he's faced with this reality. Not only do you have a kid, you're a grandpa. And he really thought he was this hot, young, on the town guy. And no, you somebody's grandpa.
Grampy.
You're somebody's grampy. So I think that was an interesting thing because it is reality of to what a lot of people are going through today. And I think it was good for him. He's good at this type of show. This family, comedy, fun, light. That's his wheelhouse. So I think it's a good look for him.
No, I didn't like it. I'm just, for some reason, it just wasn't calling me, unfortunately.
I mean, that doesn't mean I'm going to be seeing it. I don't watch, as stated, 30-minute comedies are not my thing. But I thought it was good. For people who enjoy John Stamos, who like these family comedies, I think they'll like it.
Speaking of 30-minute comedies, the next we saw was The Grinder, which was another 30-minute comedy starring Rob Lowe this time. I think
it's ironic that you call it a 30-minute comedy. I really thought it was an hour long. I felt like it was an hour long.
Oh my goodness. I really thought it was that long. It dragged. It had a really nice cast. Rob Lowe.
Fred
Savage, who we all know from... God, I'm terrible with names today. The Wonder Years. I'm horrible. Shoot me now.
So they play brothers, one whom is a lawyer and one who plays a lawyer on TV. And Rob Lowe's character has completed 8 successful seasons on his courtroom drama, The Grinder, and now is kind of at a loss as to what to do next with the next chapter of his life. And because he admires his brother so much and his father, who's a retired lawyer, he decides, hey, I could be a lawyer. And he decides to go and join the family practice.
And I found it really odd that it takes place in Boise, Idaho. Like, I don't think a show has ever taken place in Boise, Idaho. I just found that really, really bizarre.
I also find it, it's one thing to play fast and loose with rules and regulations in this, but I think at some point you need to explain why certain things are allowed. I didn't understand why he was allowed to participate in the trial. I could just imagine every single case being thrown out after. Like, that's the practical side of me saying that at the end of the day, they're going to throw out every case that they do because
he's not a lawyer.
He's not a lawyer, even though they kind of explain away that he's planning to take the bar. And I guess maybe because the law in Idaho, you don't need to go to law school.
Which some states
to
you
take
can.
the bar. Like, you can immediately take the bar and start practicing law and not necessarily have to have attended law school. Maybe that's the reason why it's Idaho. I don't know. But that was one thing that confused me. It's one of the issues that I always have. I know a lot of people are fans of Suits, but I just can't get over that hump as to how he's allowed, how anybody will put their practice at risk for that.
I think it's a little bit different with Suits because everyone knows that, and it's not a comedy. It's a lot more. It's a drama. And the
stakes are higher.
The stakes are higher. He's blackmailed his way into that. And in New York State is one of those states where you don't need to go to law school to take the bar. There are some loopholes with it, which I don't want to get into specifics, but there is a way he can navigate that legally. But in any case, The Grinder I guess they try to be like slapstick funny, and I found it very bland.
I think Rob Lowe is really good. I mean, I've seen him the last few times that he's done projects. Obviously, the last thing that I really loved when he did the whole Scott Peterson thing. I think it's Scott Peterson.
I don't know.
Drew Peterson?
Scott or Drew Peterson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where he did this Lifetime movie. I thought he was really great. And he kind of was a similar in terms of affectation, a similar character, like in terms of this charming and I could talk my way out of stuff and I could smile. So it should have been really great for Rob Lowe. And I think Rob Lowe is actually the one who looked the best in it. I think Fred Savage's character came across
a little whiny,
but I don't understand why, because he was in the right. Like, when you look at Fred Savage's character, to me personally, he's not wrong in what he's saying. He's actually 100% right. yet he's the villain of the show. And so that kind of always turns me off to this kind of, maybe it's my heart that wants to be fair and righteous, but it annoys me when you see people who are trying to do the right thing and trying to be the voice of reason, and they're looked down upon, like, like you're the villain for doing that.
Maybe it also feels like he's been living in his brother's shadow. For all these, his brother, for all his purposes, is the successful one. Yeah. Fred Savage's character has a lot of shortcomings, and maybe just feels like, if my brother can do this better, like what? Maybe just like throws his hands up or something.
Then the next pilot we saw was Scream Queens from Ryan Murphy, an hour-long horror comedy.
I'm giggling a little bit because I really wanted like the pilot to be over. I had some, I was looking forward to it because I like Ryan Murphy. I liked Glee. I loved Glee season 1 and part of season 2. But from there, it kind of dragged a little bit. And I kept watching it because I was so faithful to it. And I wanted to be faithful to Scream Queens. But it was just not... I just didn't... For some reason, horror and comedy, for me, I can't do that. It has to be one or the other.
I think there's ways to do it. I mean, obviously, Tales from the Crypt did it for years, and it was successful horror comedy. When you look at some of my favorite horror movies, like Demon Knight, which is a Tales from the Crypt movie with Jada Pinkett, has a lot of comedy elements. Our bad guy is played by Billy Zane, who is very funny. And then you have something like Bordello of Blood, which is also another funny one with one of the Coreys. I don't know which one, but it's a horror comedy. They had water guns with holy water in it, and they were fighting vampires. So there was horror and there was comedy. I felt like that was Scream Queens. It was funny. I laughed. It was very over the top, and you can't take this show very seriously. The whole texting murder thing, it's not supposed to be serious. You can't take it any serious. I'm the tweet while I'm being murdered. It's hilarious because young people are so attached to their phones. Yes. That even while they're being murdered, they're going to send a tweet. So it's very over the top. So I think you have to kind of get over that hump of like suspending belief for a little bit and saying, yeah, this is going to be absolutely ridiculous, but still watching, even though it is ridiculous.
I don't know, maybe it's just that kind of show is just not my thing. I really can't. I'm probably going to watch it because Nick Jonas's arms are in it. And I love Nick Jonas. So I may give it another episode or two. It was just not what I expected.
Fair enough.
The next pilot we saw was Rosewood.
Dr. Rosie.
Yes. Horatio?
No.
What was his first name?
Oh my God, Horatio. Horatio is from CSI Miami.
Oh, really? And I don't watch CSI Miami.
Oh God, so he's already on Horatio Kane. This was very difficult to watch. Fox needs to never air this. Like, they need to hide it and never show anybody that they made this.
I'm really, honestly, truly surprised that they picked this up to series. And I'm, Morris Chestnut, God bless him. I know acting people like to think it's an easy job. I know it's not an easy job. But I just don't think Morris Chestnut is strong enough to hold a show on his own. I find his acting to be very mediocre. And I also find the premise was so confusing. Like, it takes place in Miami, and you have all of these influences of salsa music and encouraging, Latino heritage and all that. But then the male lead is African American, unless he's Afro-Cuban, and we don't know that. Mm-hmm. But I just found it very confusing. They were trying too hard to make it like a more serious version of House, but with more comedy. And I was very confused by it. I did not like it at all. I was really squirming in my seat the entire 42 minutes.
I think that there was a lot of Horatio, as you mentioned, from CSI mm-hmm. Miami in this kind of lone wolf guy that they tried to portray in CSI Miami when they had Horatio do every job, and he was the medical examiner, and he was a cop, and he was a lawyer, and he was Horatio did everything on that show. Like, nobody else, nobody had a job. Like, nobody was allowed to think. He did it all. He did everything, which doesn't make sense. That's not reality. You work with a team. This premise of him being a private pathologist works because he can be the lone wolf that's doing everything on his own. Even though he has a team, but it's a small team. But you kind of get the idea that it's more believable that he would be this kind of lone wolf guy investigating crime and solving it, while making fun of the local police who never quite get it. So it's kind of that feel too of those shows, like with the old PI shows, with the cops didn't know what they were doing, the bumbling cops, and then it took this kind of PI to come in and solve the crime. So I feel like there's an audience for it. I don't know if this show was successful at portraying that concept. I think the concept could work. I don't know if the show did it with its writing.
The specific show, yeah.
Yeah, it was too... there was a lot of exposition. Instead of having us learn things organically and slowly and at a pace, there was these weird standing monologues. No one talks like that. No one stands there in front of a wall of windows telling a stranger their entire life story. It was very odd.
It was very peculiar. And I'm upset because Lorraine Toussaint is in it, and I love her. She did a great job in Orange is the New Black. So when I saw her name, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really excited for this. And then I just did not like it. It was kind of sad. But sorry, no show for Rosewood. The last pilot we saw for Fox, popular one, a lot of people looking forward to, Minority Report. It takes place, I want to say either 10 or 15 years after the movie Minority Report, when they shut down pre-crime. Follows one of the twins, Dashiell, who leaves the compound to try to do some good. But every time he tries to solve or prevent a murder, he fails. The people die.
So if you remember from the original movie, there were 3 precogs. You had Agatha, you had Arthur, and Dash, who were the ones that would receive the data for pre-crime and that people would be arrested. What has happened in the years since is that the 3 precogs separated themselves from society to kind of get away from the visions. And in the meantime, all the people that were arrested during pre-crime were let out, but there are after effects to having been in the prison, in the Halo system that they had. Yeah. And many of them came out mentally scarred. So now Dash is, a young man. He's come back to DC because he feels he wants to do good and he wants to prevent crime, which is what he wanted to do, which is what he was doing before. I feel like maybe being in pre-crime gave him purpose. Mm-hmm. And once he was out, he felt that he had no purpose. And so he thinks his only purpose is to prevent crime.
But also, you have to realize he was, from a very young age, into the system of pre-crime. Yeah. He had no childhood. He was raised to function in pre-crime. He very socially awkward, does not understand social cues.
Because of also the isolation. They had him in isolation for a really long time. Mm-hmm. While they were doing experiments on them as children, while they were in pre-crime, and then even the years he spent in isolation with Agatha and Arthur, away from people.
Yeah.
I will say that they made it very interesting in terms of that it's not all the time easy for Dash. It's not like he gets his visions and they're 100% complete. Because if we remember for the movie, all 3 pieces were needed in order to get the complete picture of what was going to happen.
And in Dashiell's case, he saw some of the images. His twin brother, Arthur, saw the names. And Agatha, who they say was the more powerful one, was able either to put it all together or to get the correct pieces in order. Yeah,
she would kind of fill in the blanks and had the larger picture. They also made for an emotional statement with the fact that Dashiell sees the crimes, mm-hmm. where Arthur didn't. Arthur only saw names, dates, pertinent information like that, where Dash had to experience those emotions of death constantly, which gives us a more damaged character, mm-hmm. having been through that and having experienced that over and over again, and then wanting to stop it and not being able to. They pair him up with he's paired up with a detective in Washington, D.C., Megan Good, played by Megan Good. I thought they were trying to go for a Sleepy Hollow dynamic. This kind of socially awkward, out of time, doesn't know how to act in society guy with this hip, young, African-American police detective. They very much remind me of Nicole Beharie and Tom Meissen, but not necessarily carbon copies. Mm-hmm. I liked that. I actually thought Megan Good did a good job in the pilot for the role that she was given, what she had to do. I found her sincere, and I found her okay. This is not a taxing acting job. Like, you need to have, the greatest acting chops to do this. I don't know what her skill set is and what her ability is. I thought she did good with what she had. I thought she was good for the role.
I agree. My issue, I just felt like Megan needed to. I don't know. I just felt like it wasn't a good fit for her. This pilot. Maybe it gets better. I had similar feelings with Nicole Bahari in Sleepy Hollow when I first started watching. I felt like, who is this? I feel like she needs to try better. And then after season 3 or 4, I really, really liked her. So I'm hoping for that.
Episode 3 or 4.
Episode 3 or 4. Did I say season 3 or 4? Yeah, not yet. I haven't time traveled. In episode 3 or 4, I really started to like her. And I'm hoping we get the similar thing here with Minority Report. That she really grows into the role and that, the show gets better. I really like the pilot. It also reminded me a lot of Almost Human. Which was another Fox pilot last year, or Fox series, that I adored. I loved Carl Urban, and I loved
Michael
Ealy. I thought that they were amazing together. And I was, heartbroken when they canceled it. So I feel like this is filling that void a little bit, so I'm really going to root for it, and I really hope it does get better.
What I also liked and enjoyed about Minority Report is the subtle nuances of policing in the future. So
yes.
I like when shows can seamlessly insert those things, that everything seems a little advanced, the technology seems appropriately advanced, but not so far out that it's unachievable that we wouldn't have this by 2065, because it's supposed to be 2065 when the show takes place, or that it's so foreign that I can't wrap my head around it, or that it's so obvious. They obviously, this is our new computer system, and this is how we do things, where it's thrown in your face, this new technology. It was more seamlessly
subtle
incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
The police drones that she had, when she would go into a place that she didn't know what was going on around, she had these drones that she would toss in. We know drone technology is getting bigger and more prevalent. And then
it's highly conceivable that in 20 years, drones would be used to take photos and videos of police crimes, of police crime scenes.
I liked the crime scene reenactment scene when she's going through it, how it incorporates the computer data, and then she can see things like the path that people took because it's all uploaded into a computer. The interface that she uses when she is doing her police work is a contact lens, so she in real time can see computer displays, things like that are believable to
it wasn't far-fetched.
Technology, to the pace of technology today. So that I really enjoyed. So I like when shows do stuff like that, when they show you a little bit, of the future. And Almost Human did it too.
Yes.
Pretty seamlessly. Continuum is another one that really seamlessly put in this advanced policing without making it seem outrageous.
And the corporate Congress. So yeah, I really thought it was a great pilot. I have high hopes for it. Like I said, I really hope Megan Good grows into the role. And I really hope it succeeds because it's good. The Minority Report movie I thought was excellent. So I really hope that this comes into its own.
Okay, so I have one question for you, Julio. What shows are you definitely adding into your schedule for the fall?
Why'd you ask me that question? I'm definitely adding Blind Spot, Quantico, because I just love police procedurals and I really like the premise. Minority Report, Supergirl, and the surprise ad is Limitless. I really did not expect to like that pilot so much, where I'm really looking forward to seeing what's happening next. What about you? What are you going to be adding?
I'm going to be adding Blind Spot, Quantico, Containment, Limitless, Supergirl, Scream Queens, and Minority Report. Though I will give an honorable mention to The Player, though this is not a show that I would typically watch, and I probably won't watch this show. I think it's a good show. I think that people who like
Person of Interest?
Not even just Person of Interest, but it had a very Hawaii Five-0 feel to me, in terms of its lightness and the comedy and the kind of an NCIS LA feel. So if you like these action shows, but that have a hint of lightness and comedy, you're definitely going to like The Player. I like my shows a little grittier, but I will give The Player an honorable mention. I think that it deserves to stay on. And Wesley Snipes was really good.
Surprisingly.
I thought he was hilarious.
Surprisingly, Wesley Snipes was really good in this. And I forgot to mention, I will also be adding Life in Pieces because I need to add a comedy in there. I need to replace some comedy. Life in Pieces is going to fill that.
Okay. Next time that we meet with you guys, we're going to be talking about the full premieres that are not from Paleyfest. Things like, I don't know, what shows are we adding in?
I really want to add a Marvel show. Mm-hmm. Definitely want to talk about either The Flash or Arrow, or maybe both.
Absolutely. I'm very excited and waiting for iZombie to come.
I know you really love that show.
I love iZombie. And also the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Flash and Arrow. So we'll see. I'm also excited for my other non-genre shows like Criminal Minds, etc. that are coming this season. And of course, my boys, Supernatural.
Full disclosure, I just started watching Supernatural after volunteering at a Supernatural convention, and I'm up to halfway through season 10, and I'm now officially obsessed. What do they call Supernatural fans?
IDK.
IDK? No, that's I don't know. Whatever they call Supernatural fans, I am a huge Supernatural fan now. I love my boys, especially Castiel. I love him. Like I want to have his babies.
Okay, guys, if there's particular shows that you want us to talk about, leave us a comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and we'll see if we add it into the rotation. Our goal is every week to put out a podcast reviewing all the genre shows and all the shows we've watched for that week, giving you our viewpoint on it. But we'd love to interact with you guys. Let us know what you want to hear from us, and let us know what you think. If you were at Paleyfest or if you've seen any of these pilots online, let us know what you think so that we can have a discussion.
Hopefully in future podcasts, we can definitely incorporate a lot of your questions and comments and viewpoints into our own discussion. So definitely throw us a line on Twitter at Vigilante Pod, so we can definitely get the conversation going.
Right. Thanks, guys, for sitting with us.
Bye. See you next time.